Greetings all, and welcome to Luca Sprues. In today's video, we're going to be doing an inbox review of the 1996 Grumman TBF 1 Avenger from Academy in 1/72nd scale, and we'll be comparing it to the brand new Hobby Boss TBM 3 Avenger, also in 1/72nd scale. So without further ado, let's have a look at these two kits of the Avenger. So we'll start off by having a look at the Academy Avenger first, followed by the Hobby Boss kit, and in usual format we'll look at the box first, followed by the instructions to see how everything goes together, and then we'll have a close look at the plastic parts, and at the very end I'll talk a little bit about the differences and the prices. And if you wish to skip to any particular part of this video, I'll leave timestamps in the description. So this particular iteration of the Academy Avenger is one that was a partnership between Academy and Minicraft, so we've got the titles there. It's been reissued several times under a few different brands, but all of the boxes seem to have a pretty similar box art style like this one, with a sort of classic painted image of the Avenger with a little bit of action going on. So there's a bit of fire in the background and we're sort of shooting past what looks like a Japanese battleship of some kind there. And there's a lot of water splashing up and the torpedo has just been dropped, and our pilot appears to be enjoying a little bit of the breeze while he focuses on aiming his fish there. On the side we've then got a picture of the finished model, so something nice to aspire to and get a bit of inspiration from. Got the usual warnings in a few different languages about this being a unassembled kit and that it requires paint and glue to complete. Repeat of the box art on the side there. On the top, again, same image and the same warnings, so I don't know why they've bothered to do it twice, but oh well. And then again, on the other side, a repeat of the box art, and as usual, nothing on the back for the Academy kits. So opening up, we'll have a look at our instructions, and then we'll open up the plastic parts and have a closer look at them and the decals. So these instructions are a little bit old and a little bit messy, although I'd imagine they would be quite similar to Academy's more recent releases. But we've got a picture of the finished model again, a little bit closer up, although it's in black and white, and we've got a bit of history about the Avenger in particular, with some specifications thrown in here and there. At the bottom of the page we have our key for the various steps that may be required during assembly, and we have a copyright from 1987, which is interesting since I don't believe this kit is that old. It's actually from 1996 as far as I know. The instructions consist of one, I guess it would be an A3 page if I'm not mistaken, so a little bit larger, but at least it doesn't fully fold out, and you can always fold it in half if you want it to take up a bit less space. As you can see though, it's a reasonably simple kit to assemble. You've got a few different sections for the interior with a couple of bulkheads and some basic looking seats, and we appear to have one pilot figure. Then we've got the assembly of the landing gear, which consists of attaching the landing gear doors to the struts, followed by the wheel. And then we've got a propeller assembly with what looks like a propeller and then a little insert, which if you don't glue to the middle section here, you should be able to freely spin the propeller. And it appears that our engine cylinder head details are moulded to the cowling, so they're a little bit more basic and less parts to assemble there. Moving on to step 4, it's a rather crowded stage, so you're going to have to be careful and take your time and make sure you've definitely done everything at this step. But first of all, we've got a sub-assembly here for the rear turret, which consists of a piece to mount the gun to, along with a seat and then a clear part which goes on top of the base. And then you can attach that to a little kind of bracket on the inside of each fuselage half, and if you don't glue the turret, you should be able to rotate it freely. Then we've got some windows for the rear part of the tail there, along with the tail wheel, which appears to only be shown in the raised position, although by the looks of things it's sort of attached to a pivot, so if you don't glue it perhaps you can extend or retract it, or obviously you can just glue it in the up or down position depending on how you want this model. Then we've got what appears to be some sort of navigation equipment which goes to the inside of the fuselage there. We've got our ventral gun, which attaches to the bottom of the fuselage half, and then we're also attaching our previously assembled interior pieces. Interestingly, we've only got one figure, and that appears to be the pilot, although there would have been 3 crew members on the Avenger, which are absent in this kit, which is a little bit odd. I think it's weird why you'd bother doing one figure and then leaving half of the crew. Maybe it's an airshow Avenger and it's just flying around doing some flight demonstrations, but if you wanted to do a proper combat ready one, you might want to get some spare crew members or leave the pilot out and have the aircraft on the ground. You've also got options here for a stand, and you'll notice that there are no color codes. Instead, you just have a simple word for the color and then an arrow pointing to vaguely where it would be. In the interior, we've got chromac green, plus there is white, but I have no idea where the white's supposed to be. I'm assuming it's indicating just the tail wheel, but yeah, not very helpful. At least it's a little bit clearer with the engine and the propeller blades here. But moving on, for step 5, we add the wings, which have to be joined to each half, and we've got 2 horizontal stabilizers, and we can attach the engine to the front. And for step 6, the main landing gear gets glued into position. You can either have it as it shows in the retracted position, where you'd simply glue that piece to the bottom, or if you want it to be on the ground extended, you can add the extra little piece here and glue it in the down position. Next, we've got the last of the windows, including those larger side ones and the main canopy, along with a few smaller details such as the pitot tubes and the antenna on the top there. Interestingly, it appears we get 3 pitot tubes. Perhaps one of them is supposed to be some sort of radar system as well, or maybe Grumman just wanted a lot of redundancy with the pitot tubes. Finally, for the instructions, we have our color guide here. And it's in black and white, which is a little bit annoying, but at least there's not too many colors, so it's pretty clear what each one is. Although for some reason they haven't filled in the black key, so obviously the tires would be black, but it's not shown there, which is a little bit useless. We've only got one marking scheme included for this kit, and it is a aircraft with the ID 301 with a white arrow and the later war kind of roundels. I believe that this one would have been from the Bunker Hill, which is also one of the markings included in the Hobby Boss kit, which we'll have a look at shortly. And on the back, we've just got advertisements for more of Academy's products. So the instructions are a little bit overcrowded and not super useful, although these are an older version of this kit. I believe Academy have done new instructions, and if they have, I'll put a little thing up on the video now showing them, because you can see them from ScaleMate's website. And hopefully they've made it a little bit more clear and beginner friendly, because these aren't the best. But if you've had a little bit of experience or you take your time, you should still be quite fine, and it isn't a super complicated looking kit. Moving on to the plastic parts in this kit, we have 2 plastic bags which contain 4 light grey moulded sprues, along with the clear sprues and a set of decals. So starting with sprue A, we have the fuselage sides for the left, along with the horizontal stabilizers, the engine, and part of the stand and the propeller. Having a look at the fuselage half here, we appear to have quite a accurate shape for the Avenger. There's nothing that really stands out immediately to me that looks incorrect. And we have some nice recessed panel lines along with raised rivet details. So a bit of an older mix of techniques there, but for the Grumman Avenger, which would have been a pretty rugged aircraft, I'd imagine there would have been a lot of raised rivet lines that weren't sealed in. So I think it's a pretty appropriate and rather nice approach to doing it. Got a little bit of detail for the fabric, but no actual texturing to the surfaces. It's just the recessed panels, which is alright. And for the inside here, there isn't really any detail, and there's quite a few ejector pin marks, although at least they won't be super visible. There is a little bit of flashing here and there on a few parts, but nothing that can't really be fixed up. And we've got the very basic exhausts molded there, and yeah, all the recessed detailing looks pretty decent. For the horizontal stabilizers, again, recessed details, although there is no texturing for the fabric area. Little bit of flash on the edges that will need to be neatened up, but nothing too major. For the engine, as I mentioned, it's molded to the engine cowling, so it's a little bit basic and not awfully detailed, but in general it's still pretty nice. They have had an attempt at doing some recessed cylinder heads, which don't look super accurate, but still they've had a go. And the gear shaft, or the gearbox area, looks pretty nice with some raised rivets. And they've done a little bit of detailing for the inside of the air intake on the bottom there, which I believe would be for the oil cooling. So yeah, they've still had a pretty good go, although it is a little bit older. And the propeller's pretty neatly molded, with only a little bit of flashing here and there. And our display stand looks like a display stand, so that is good. For Sprue B here, we have the other fuselage hull, and it's pretty much the same story on this side. They're pretty much identical except for the access hatch here for the ventral crew member, who is also, I believe, the radio operator and the bombardier. But otherwise, yep, same raised rivets with some recessed panel lines, which looks okay. We've got the base of our stand here, which looks like the base of a stand. And for the interior, we have a little bit of sidewall detailing, but there's nothing really too major. It's sort of just an empty flat panel with no detail other than a little bump there. And for our seat, again, pretty basic. It's sort of just the basic shape, and there are a lot of ejector pin marks, so they might need to be neatened up. I am thinking, because of how basic the interior is for this one, I may be tempted to 3D print a replacement one. Here we have the landing gear bay doors, which have a little bit of raised ribbing on them. Nothing too amazing, though. And it appears that we've got our cockpit floor here with the rudder pedals, and this must be the radio one. So they've pretty much used the exact same shapes for the sidewall details, although there are a few more ejector pin marks on the pilot area, or the cockpit, which will require cleanup. And there is a little hole there to insert the control column. Moving on to Sprue C here, we have I think that's the right side, upper and lower wing halves there. And similar story to everywhere else, there's recessed panel lines, which are nice. And they've done a little bit of the detailing for the wings there for the sort of, I think it's like almost an air dam system that's supposed to help with low speed handling. So that looks pretty neat. You can see the recesses for where the wings would have folded, although the wings obviously come as a two-piece, so it would be a little bit tricky if you wanted to fold the wings up, and you'd need to do a fair bit of scratch building or have a conversion kit for the missing details. And again, fabric surfaces are recessed, but there's no real detailing to them, although they have done a nice little bit of detail for the fuel cap there. And we've got a fair few smaller parts here, including the landing gear struts, which are decently moulded. A little bit of flash here and there and a few ejector pin marks, but nothing too serious. Looks like the base of the turret here, along with perhaps the part that the machine gun attaches to. We've got the two larger struts for the main landing gear as well, with the navigation equipment and a very basic control column for the pilot. We've got our seats here, which are, again, very basic and have some rather nasty ejector pin marks, so might be tempted to replace those. And we've got the back for the propeller to attach it to the, the sort of spinner piece here, along with the pitot tubes, one of which has been a little bit damaged, but hopefully I can just bend that back to shape. And yeah, that's pretty much it for Sprue C. The last grey sprue we have here is Sprue D, and it contains the left wing half, which is identical, along with the single pilot figure, who's pretty basic and rather stocky looking there. The third pitot tube, which has a little sort of extra piece on it. I'm not sure what the exact term is, but it's a little bit different. We've got our rear turret's machine gun, along with the tail wheel, which looks quite nice, with some decent recessed details. And we've got our ventral gun, with an attempt at a gun sight, although it is a solid piece of plastic. So again, might want to replace that, but honestly, for the time, it probably was quite a decent level of detail, really. We've got the door, which covers the tail wheel when it is retracted, and we've got two wheels here, which are rather nicely detailed, actually. They've fully done a recessed tread pattern, although there is a bit of a nasty seam line and some ejector marks on the inside there, but luckily those ejector marks are going to be a little bit less visible, so that's pretty decent. And they've done a nice amount of detailing for the hub too, with some recessed indents plus some raised rivets and details. So yeah, quite nicely done for the wheels there. That's probably the most detailed part of the kit. Then we've got some antennas here and another little piece there. Not too sure what that one is. Yeah, and finally we've got, looks like another set of wheels, although these must be for the retracted option. Now, the last sprue we have here is the clear parts, and as you can see, they're not too badly done, really. They are maybe a tiny bit thick, and there are a few little imperfections and marks here and there, but on the whole, still pretty decent. Considering how curved the canopy is, it's not really all that badly distorted. And the rear turret, again, is pretty similar, although there are a few blemishes here and there. A bit of a shame they didn't include the option to have the canopy open, as you see on the box art, but I suppose you could always get a vacuform one and open it up if you wished. And it probably is better that it's closed so you can hide the rather simple cockpit. But yeah, clear parts, not too badly done, really. The last thing we have to look at in this kit are the decals, and unfortunately they're printed on white paper, so it is pretty hard to actually see the 301 and the arrow markings. Though you can see the decals are very simple, and I think they've probably done the blue roundels a little bit too dark, but maybe they might be accurate, although I think that they were a little bit more blue, and they certainly seem to be on other kits. But yeah, rather simple, not too many common stencils other than these no step markings, and then you just get your very basic unit markings and the roundels. And quality should be okay, although Academy have definitely improved in more recent years, and I think they're starting to use cartograph decals as well, so with newer releases of this kit you probably get much better decal options and a little bit more detail, but these should be reasonably serviceable. So moving on to the Hobby Boss Avenger, the first thing you'll probably notice is it is a TBM3 rather than a TBF1. And the TBM basically means that it was produced by General Motors, whereas the TBF means it was produced by Grumman. And the Dash 3 was a slightly later version, and I believe the most produced one, whereas the Academy kit, which is the Dash 1, is sort of the earliest version. The main differences are around the engine, so as well as the engine being slightly different, on the first version you only have the single air intake for the cooling at the top there, and these sort of vents for the cooling as well, I believe. Whereas on the 3 version you have these cow flaps and you have a second cooling intake. So the Hobby Boss box art is a little bit more modern with a sort of graphic design look to it rather than a sort of painted style, although it still looks really quite nice. It's not quite as classic or action-packed. You've sort of just got a squadron of 3 Avengers slowly peeling away as they fly over the Pacific through some clouds, which still looks really nice. And you've got a nice bit of weathering and sort of shaded effects on the aircraft, so they do look a little bit beaten. As usual with Hobby Boss, we have the logo, the titles, and some dimensions for the kit, along with a little warning saying it's for ages 14 plus, and it is a detailed scale model for adult collectors, with the 1/72nd scale label there. On the bottom here we have a picture of one of the schemes included, and it is again a Grumman Avenger with the yellow nose and the white arrow, and as it mentions in more detail for this one, the marking is for White 148, which is from VT84, based on the USS Bunker Hill. We've also got here a nice bit of detail about what was changed with the TBM3, talking about its development, which is cool, in both English and I believe Chinese. Got the Made in China sticker and the copyright of 2024, which is actually accurate for this tooling, I believe. Then on the side here, we've got the repeat of the box art. On the top here, we have our second scheme included, which is for White 110 from VT82 on the USSS Bennington CV20, and it's a late war gloss blue rather than the 3-tone like we've seen with the other 2 kits, or the other markings. And you've got a bit of detail about armament and fuel tanks which are included, as well as Photo-etch and the decal sheet, which as you can see is a lot more detailed. And we've got a lot of warnings saying that this is not a toy and it's for adults only. So yeah, a lot more warnings, and definitely not as beginner friendly and inviting as the Academy kit for sure. But at least it is a little bit honest about the fact that it's more detailed and more advanced. For the underside, nothing, it's just a empty box, so we'll move on to opening it. So it's a top opener box, just like the Academy kit was, and as you can see we have a lot more paper, a lot more plastic bags, and a lot more sprues. And in typical Hobby Boss form, they've done a really nice job with packaging. Each of the sprues gets its own bag, which is, not the best for the environment, but on the plus side, it does mean that you're less likely to have the sprues get damaged and parts to come off and, require fixing. At the bottom here, we've got our Photo-etch, which we'll look at a bit more closely later, along with a masking set, which I don't think is pre-cut, but we'll have a little look later again, and some decals. So quite a large and packed box, which is a bit different to the Academy kit. So along with a sort of promotional card advertising Hobby Boss's latest kits, including the Avenger itself, we get the instructions, which are in a booklet format, which I'm a big fan of, and they're printed in black and white, but we also have a separate guide for the color markings, which are in color, which is great. So on the front of the instructions, we have a black and white printing of the decal, of the decals. So in the instructions, we have a black and white picture of the box art, along with some nice guides for anyone who's a little bit less experienced or wants some tips. Then we've got our keys here for the various steps we may have to perform when assembling this kit. And we've also got a nice guide for how to apply the decals. Opening up, we then have a sprue map on the first page. And as you can see, we've got the 6 sprues, I believe, in grey, along with the clear sprues, decals, Photo-etch, and the masks, which it's saying are die cut, so I'm assuming they're pre-cut. Assembly starts as usual with the interior, and as you can see, a lot more detail than the Academy one. We have a floor piece here, then we're adding in a what looks like some sort of radio or a fuse box, the control column for the pilot, along with a backup sort of pump looking thing. Looks like some sort of tanks or cylinders, perhaps for some oxygen. Another sidewall bit here for the pilot, and there's a lot of little things here in the rear for the radio compartment. Then we've got the main instrument panel, which is a single piece with a decal for the details, followed by the bulkhead for the pilot, which consists of 2 pieces. And then we've got the engine details, which are, again, a lot more complicated. We've got 2 separate parts here for each row of cylinders, followed by a piece here with the various wires and the main gearbox, which goes on the front. And then we attach it to a rear bulkhead and add the front cowling on top of that. Moving on, we've got the pilot seat, which gets attached to this kind of rail and then or framework and glued to the rear bulkhead and the floor, followed by another large amount of radio equipment, which gets glued to this other bulkhead section. And it appears there's another little bit of detailing and framework on the back of that. I should point out we've also got the colours mentioned with both the or a name for them, and I believe the Mr. Hobby colours are the guide used here. Turning over the page, we have assembly of the torpedo, which consists of the main torpedo body, which comes in 2 halves, along with a bit of framework to attach it to the interior of the aircraft, and the 2 propeller blades, which are made out of Photo-etch, and the ring for the rear there. Then we've got the Bombay itself, which I believe is on the underside. Oh no, it's actually a separate piece entirely. So we've got a separate piece for the Bombay with some really nice looking amounts of detail there. I've got a lot of frames and brackets to attach, along with a few bulkheads. And again, there's even more detailing, like for the doors here, you've got the entire system for opening them up. Not only a front section there, but also a rear one here. So a lot of very fiddly bits of framework to assemble. Looks like we've got our fuel tanks here, seeing as you have the option to either have the fuel tank or the torpedo. I'd imagine the fuel tank is probably more useful given how badly the early torpedoes performed, although by the looks of things it's a later version, and I'd imagine that's what they were using with the TBM3. Or we've even got options here for bombs, and as you can see we've got some larger ones for the rear and some smaller ones. Not too sure what they were. I think it might have been 500 and 250 pound bombs, but I could be mistaken there. The bombs themselves come in 2 halves like the torpedo, and then have the fins added on for the 2 types, and then you can attach them to the inside of the Bombay. And we've then got the assembly for the turret here, and as you can see you've got a lot more detail and smaller fiddly parts than the Academy kit's turret, and rather than having just a basic circular base, you have the proper framework there. Plus we've got details there for the machine gun, along with all the ammunition and various controls, which are all looking really awesome. Hopefully they look just as good with the plastic. Then we've got more parts here for the, looks like some sort of sighting system there for the gun sight, which gets added onto the front of the turret there. And then you add that onto the framework, which it would rotate on, and add the glass frame on top of that, before adding it onto another sort of bulkhead for it to attach to. So quite a complicated bit of assembly there, but looks really nicely detailed. And finally, you can then add the cockpit floor and radio compartment to the top of the Bombay there. And it looks like you've got a large wing spar section there, so should line up quite nicely. On the next page, we have the inside of the fuselage halves there, and you're adding the tail hook. which I believe was completely absent in the Academy kit. We've also got the bench seating for the ventral gunner's position, and it looks like a piece of the wing spar there. We've then got the tail wheel, which has not only the tail wheel and some separate parts for the framework, but also a proper bulkhead, which looks quite awesome. And it looks like we've also got the bulkhead for the ventral turret position with various cylinders there, possibly again more oxygen supply, or maybe some of the hydraulics for the wheels. And once you've assembled the framework and the gun there, you attach that to the tail wheel and tail wheel bulkhead, and then insert that into the fuselage. Finally, you then add the turret and the interior part with the bomb bay to the fuselage halves, and you can join those together and never see a lot of that stuff ever again, which is a bit of a shame, but oh well, quite a awesome level of detail there. Moving on to step 20 now, we've got the various transparent parts, although I'd be tempted to leave them off as long as possible. Including a door here for the rear, which you could leave in the open position if you so wished to get a little bit more of that detail visible, which is cool. Got our bomb bay doors, which consist of a plastic part with photo etching for the interior framework and details, which look really nice. And I'd imagine, yeah, you've got an option to either have it in the closed position, although you then have to cut away the frames to have the doors open, or you can have them in the open position, which I think most people would want to do after all of that work for the inside of the bomb bay there. And you've got these drop tanks as well, by the looks of things, which consist of two halves, the frames to hold them together, and a little filler cap. On the next page, we have the wing assembly, which again is going to be a lot more complicated. So I believe this kit has the option to have the wings folded, so I think you'd start off with this one for that, which consists of two halves for the inner part of the wings and two halves for the outer. Then we've got the landing gear assembly, which is consists of a strut with a little bit of extra detail being added, followed by the landing gear door and the wheels. Then we've got various armament options to add to the underside of the wings, such as these rockets, or I believe, yeah, the drop tanks, depending on what payload you're going with. Plus we've got various things such as the landing lights, the nav lights, a little bit of detail for some sort of ventilation or static system perhaps on the tip of the wing, and we've got some radar and another set of lights on the underside of the left wing and also on the right wing there. We've also got two pitot tubes, although these look like a slightly different version to the earlier one that go on the tips of the wings. So I believe these steps are pretty much the same. The only difference appears to be if you're using the entire wing there or if you're using the folded section. And this must be the for the option for the full wings, and that's for the folded wings, I believe. Not super clear, but I guess if you're doing this one, you'll have to be a bit careful. Turning over the page, obviously for our folded wings, you've just got the smaller section which you add to the fuselage there. You can also add the top part of the glare shield for the pilot and the engines at this stage. And once you've added the inner wing part, you can add the landing gear and those optional drop tanks. And we have a separate piece here for the two exhausts. For step 42, you're adding the masks onto the turret, which is going to be fun, followed by a little bulkhead and the two horizontal stabilizers, which I believe are two halves that you glue together. And then you add on the main canopy section. Again, you've got all of those masks to add. It looks like you've only got a single piece canopy there, rather than one where you could have it open, which is, yeah, like I've said, a bit of a shame, because it would have been nice to be able to see a bit more of that cockpit detail. But oh well. We've also got the propeller, which doesn't look like it'll spin. It's got a little cylinder to help insert it in to line it up, but otherwise there's no washer or any system to hold it in place. But I'd imagine most people are going to be building this with that being glued on anyways and static. Finally, we're at the last page, and this consists of adding the wings in the folded position or adding them on in the fully extended position if you so wish. That's pretty similar by the looks of things to adding the smaller inserts there. Obviously though, you're just using the larger wing piece and gluing the landing gear onto that. And for the folded wings, you've got a separate piece here with some photo etch for details, which you glue into place and then add those wings on. So obviously a lot more complicated than the Academy kit, but a lot more detailed and with a ton of different options there, which is awesome. Finally, we've got our marking guides, which as I've mentioned previously are in color, again using Mr. Hobby as the main colors, although there are a few conversions, but it's in the standard 3-tone US Navy camouflage, and just like the Academy kit, it's got the yellow stripe and the same kind of white markings from VT84. And as you can see, a lot more decals to add with all those tiny little black numbers, but pretty easy to follow this guide, and it's great that it's in color, definitely. On the other side, we've got our second marking option, which is in that later war gloss blue all over. And we've also got a marking guide for our various armament, which is great as well. Honestly, a little bit underwhelmed that there's only 2 marking options, and one of them is pretty much already out there with the Academy kit. It would have been great if Hobby Boss had done like WWII has and offer a larger number of options considering the extra detail and cost of this kit. But I'm sure there'll be some aftermarket decal options for the Avenger that will better reflect its massive and varied service history with not only the US but also the Kiwis. I know the British used them, and yeah, there's just a ton of other users of the Avenger. It was a very common aircraft. So, opening up the first plastic bag to get to one of the sprues. We have Sprue C, and as you can see off the bat, it is a completely different world to the Academy kit. We've got fully recessed panel lines as well as rivet details on the entire exterior of the fuselage half there, which looks absolutely fantastic. And we've even got little raised areas for various hatches and details, including the hinges on each of the access hatches. And yeah, it just looks absolutely fantastic on this one. For the rudder, they've gone with raised lines for the ribbing, which looks a bit more accurate to the Avenger, and some really nice details for hinges and controls, and all of those access ports look really good. The mould has a few little marks here and there where there's some seam lines and stuff that needs to be cleaned up, but nothing major. And for the inside, we've got not only raised ribbing details for all of the interior, but also some various little bits of instrumentation and bags and storage and equipment, and it just looks absolutely fantastic. On the other fuselage half, it's pretty similar, although we've got even more detail for the pilot there. And again, on the other side, the exterior is really fantastic, and the main difference is that you've got a door on the right side there. We've got various other smaller parts as well. We've got our engine cowling here with, again, really lovely recessed rivet lines and riveting. And we've got some very nicely done radiator details for both of those intakes there, which look fantastic. Got a few little bits for the interior here, like some radio equipment and a very detailed instrument panel with raised detailing for the various controls and switches and recessed dials. It's going to be a bit of a pain, I reckon, though, to get the decal to sit on that and soak into those recessed details, so might be better off just trying to paint that or finding some other way. And there is a few little imperfections on the rudder pedals there, but the rudders aren't going to be super visible anyway, so not too much of a big deal. Really nice details there for the cowling, or the cow flaps. Propeller looks quite nicely done, and yeah, a lot cleaner moulded than the Academy one. Still quite fantastic, but this is definitely better. Looks like some of the interior bulkheads with some recessed riveting details and some raised hatches and maybe some storage, that kind of thing. And we've also got our exhausts in the corner here, and they're drilled out as well, which is fantastic. And yeah, we've also got another bulkhead here for the interior with some details and wiring moulded into it. And on the other side, we've got the headrest, so I believe that is where the pilot's seat would go. And we've got the glare shield there with part of the sight there, which, yeah, looks absolutely fantastic on this sprue. These next 2 sprues, which are in 2 separate bags, because each sprue has its own bag. So Sprue E here contains the extended wing options with just the 2 halves, and as you can see, much like the fuselage, we have some absolutely fantastic recessed panel lines and riveting details. Although for some of the reinforcing parts and the extra details, they've gone with raised frames for the panels, which I think is absolutely fantastic. I think it's great when a manufacturer uses both techniques and creates something like this, which is awesome. Really loving those control surfaces. They've also got a very nice level of detail with a bit more of a fabric kind of sink to the raised lines there, as well as the metal kind of trim tab there, which looks fantastic. And they've fully gone through with the, or fully drilled out's probably the wrong word, but they've fully done the those sort of leading edge lifting devices there, or stability. There's probably a more technical term that I definitely need to learn. But yeah, fantastic job on the upper wings there. On the lower wings, the story is the same. Absolutely fantastic level of detail. And it appears that they've moulded in a machine gun there, which I believe was for a particular version of the Avenger. So yeah, quite nicely done. Flaps are really nicely detailed as well, and yeah, just absolutely fantastic on these ones, and all the access hatches, really great. For the Sprue F here, we've got the folded wing options, which are pretty much identical. Very fantastic level of detail, although they end where the smaller wing half or section begins. And we've got this extra little panel, which has a little bit of recessed interior detailing, which looks pretty awesome. Probably should also mention the landing gear bays have some detail as well on the upper wing half with some raised riveting details. And for the in part of the wings or inboard section, you've got really nice recessed riveting detail there. So absolutely fantastic level of detail on the wings as well. So we have on Sprue, what's this one? Sprue B, the well, we've got quite a lot actually, really. We've got the horizontal stabilizers here with, once again, recessed panel lines and some very nice fabric texturing there with those various access hatches quite nicely done. And both sides have the elevator details, but then there is this separate piece here for the main body of the horizontal stabilizer there for the underside. So yeah, looking fantastic there. Looks like we've got part of our bench seating, which looks pretty good as well, and the various pitot tubes and smaller antennas and details. Got our control column there, which looks pretty good. An option here for a plastic antenna, perhaps, instead of the photo-etch one on the canopy. Various bits of framework for holding the various armament options. There's a lot of really small finer parts, so you're going to have to pay careful attention to the various numbers for them. Got some sort of cover there for perhaps part of the wing. Then we've got, I believe, the interior part or detailing for where the wing fold sections are with the various raised riveting and panel line details and all that wiring, which looks great. These are our inner sections for the wings if you're putting them in the stowed position. Again, it's very similar level of detail to the other wings, and they look absolutely fantastic. Then we've got our cockpit floor here with the raised pouch there for where the control column would go into, along with some little holes to help line up various parts, and a fair bit of detail for that sort of equipment area behind the pilot. Then we've got what appears to be the rear bulkhead for where the ventral turret goes, or the ventral gun, along with the ventral gun itself right there. And as you can see, very nice raised and recessed details on these parts. Or pretty much entirely raised, but it all looks really quite awesome. Looks like a bulkhead perhaps for the bomb bay area with raised riveting details. There are a few ejector pin marks here, but I think they're going to get covered up by this part here, which is sort of the arms for controlling the bomb bay doors, which look quite fantastic. On the inside of the ventral turrets kind of position, we've got more raised riveting details and more wiring and fantastic stuff going on there. Then we've got our bomb bay here, and this is the inside of it as well. And yeah, as you can see, again, fantastic raised ribbing with a few little bits of recessed detail here and there, and it looks absolutely fantastic. Got our tail hook there, which I don't think can be in the extended position by the looks of things, but at least they've done a very nice job detailing it, along with the tail wheel there, which looks quite good. And we've got a ton of different structures here, which are sort of the guide rails for the inside of the bomb bay there, which look quite good. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this sprue, but yeah, a lot of detail packed into all of these parts. So this sprue here has a lot of smaller parts, and as you can see, they've actually wrapped it in a sort of styrofoam to help protect the parts, which I think is great. Little bit of waste, which is a shame, but if you can hold on to this and reuse it, or make sure you dispose of it properly, it's a little bit better. But it is fantastic. They spend so much time making sure that the parts are well protected. So this is Sprue A, and it's got a lot of detail. We'll start in this top corner here with the pilot seat and the frame for it, or the gunner perhaps. Yeah, I think that's the gunner. There is an ejector pin mark right in the middle of the seat, which will have to get cleaned up, but otherwise it's alright. We've got the landing gear bay doors there with, again, a lot of ejector pin marks actually, and although that won't be entirely visible, might still need to clean that up. We've got some various little arms or some sort of structure there with some recessed detailing, along with the landing gear struts there, which look fantastic with all their details. And the exterior of the landing gear doors have a few little raised details on them, which is cool. We've got our main turret gun there with some very fantastic details, and looks like another bulkhead of some kind with some recessed and raised panel lines. Got a bit of framework here for the turret, I believe, which might need to be cleaned up a bit. Got more little parts here and there. I believe that's the sighting system for one of the guns, but I'm not entirely sure. Got our engine cylinder details, which are definitely a lot better than the Academy one, and yeah, looking absolutely fantastic. Got our pilot seat here with some raised rivet details here and there, but nothing too major, but looks quite good. Got some more interior detailing with like a trim wheel by the looks of things for the pilot. Various bits of framework and some bulkheads. This one's the main one for the turret, I believe. A few little details to add onto the landing gear. Plus we've got that sort of, I think it's like a fuse box or some circuit switches for the pilot. Got the parts of the framework for where the wings fold up, which look pretty good. Looks like the ammunition for the main turret with some very nice recessed details there for the shell casings. More little bits of detail here and there which look quite good. We've got our drop tank here, or one of the versions that are included. The framework for the turret and the main sort of circle base for it. And this is like another bulkhead of some kind. I think that might be the tail wheels bulkhead. Got our wheels here with some fantastic recessed tread marks on them. Little bit of a seam line, but nothing too major. And the wheel hubs themselves have some fantastic detail, which is awesome. Got more details here for the engine with the wiring, which is a little bit thick when it's done in plastic, but you can always replace that with wiring if you really want to. And some nice details on the main gearbox system there, which look good. Got our door for accessing the interior with some nice recessed details on both the interior and exterior, so good, you can have that one open. And we've got our bomb bay doors with the closed option here and the open one. Interestingly, they've actually bothered to do the interior detailing on the closed bomb bay door, which is a bit weird. I have no idea why you would do that. And for the open ones, it's included as photo etching. And then there's just a couple of other little bits of framework, again with some recessed details on a lot of these little parts, and yeah, everything seems to be quite cleanly molded and definitely very detailed where required. Finally, we come to our last of the grey sprues, and this one appears to consist entirely of our armament options. So I'm not really well versed on the US Navy's various options, so I'm not quite sure what variant of torpedo we have, but I'm assuming it's a later war or a mid-war kind of version, since that would be more appropriate for the TBM3 rather than the really bad ones from early in the war. But yeah, all of the armament appears to be quite nicely detailed. For the drop tanks, we have some raised rivets on the underside there, which look really cool, and yeah, the torpedoes have recessed panel lines and a little bit of riveting. Drop tanks also have some raised access hatches or filler caps for them, which look good. And we've got plastic options for the torpedoes' propellers, although I do believe we also have photo-etch ones. And we've got our rockets here with a little bit of wiring detail, which looks quite cool. Plus the various fins for the bombs and the smaller bombs and the larger bombs here, with the framework for them molded to them, which is, yeah, if you wanted to use them in another aircraft, not so good, but you could always cut them off and clean them up if you didn't want to. Otherwise, though, quite nice that they've molded it to the weapons, so you could probably switch out armament if you wanted to. So yeah, looking pretty nice there for these ones. The last sprue we have, or sprues, is the clear parts, which are, again, very well packed, which is nice. Definitely good for clear parts when there's a risk of scratching, causing a bit more damage. So I'll carefully open that up. And as you can see, compared to the Academy clear parts, these ones are definitely a step above. The glass is a little bit more shiny and definitely a lot more clarity. You can see even with the curved parts there is not that much distortion. And yeah, because of how well they're packed and they seem to be quite well molded, there's not many scratches or any issues with them, which is fantastic. And yeah, even that turret, which is quite a series of complicated shapes, looks absolutely fantastic. And they've even done riveting details on the framework for the canopy, and yeah, all of those smaller windows. Got our gun sight there, which is looking really awesome. I believe that's for one of the gunners, and there's sort of like a handle attached for his gun, and that's like a reflector sight. So yeah, really fantastic job with the clear parts there. Would have been nice if we had the option to open up the pilot's canopy there and have it as like a three-piece rather than just a single piece, but luckily these parts are very nice and clear, so whatever cockpit details are there, you should hopefully still be able to see a fair bit of them. And although not exhaustive compared to some kits, we do get some nice little bits of Photo-etch for a couple of extra little details here and there, which is nice. I'll leave it in the clear wrap just to protect it, but we've got the interior details for the opened bomb bay doors, which look quite nice. A little bit of detail there for the interior of the wing where it folds, which look quite good, although pretty similar level of detail to the plastic parts, if I'm being honest, which are fantastic. But if you prefer Photo-etch for some reason, you've got it there. Then we've got our mast here for the canopy, which is cool. Propeller blades for the torpedo. And finally, we've got those really fine radio antenna masks, so some nice little extra additions to make the kit even more detailed if you wish to add them. And finally, we have our decals and the masks, so I'll open these up. And I'll start by looking at the decals here, but as you can see, much larger sheet than the Academy kit. And I'll have to be careful because it's got a little bit of tape to hold the piece of protective paper on, and I don't want that damaging the decals. So yeah, we've got two different sets of roundels. We've got the earlier war slightly lighter blue roundel, and then we've got the later more darker one. So that's cool. And yeah, we've got our white unit markings, very similar to the Academy one, although I'd imagine given that it's a newer kit, the quality will be even better. I'm a little dubious as to how well these are going to go with the cockpit panel having so much recessed and raised detail. I reckon it might be better to just paint it by hand very carefully, or even maybe try and cut out smaller sections so that you don't have any issues lining it up or getting it to stick to the detail. Looks like the clear film on these decals is a bit large, so yeah, I'm really not counting on that instrument panel. But we've got a fairly large selection of smaller common stencils, which all look pretty good. They're not as well done as cartograph decals. They seem to be a little bit blurry and slightly harder to read, so not as detailed. But still pretty fantastic that you've got them, and they are quite detailed, and you can still read most of them. They're just not quite as refined as cartograph or maybe Eduard as well, but those are some pretty fantastic decals to be fair, and these ones look perfectly serviceable. There is a bit of a weird film on them, like a sort of splotchy kind of gloss to them, but with a bit of varnish over the top of them, that's not going to be too much of an issue. Finally, we have our masks, and it does not appear that they are pre-cut. I can't really see any sort of... Oh, no. Ah, there we go. Okay, never mind. They are, in fact, pre-cut. You can sort of fold them and peel them off, which is awesome. That's going to save a ton of work, and yeah, even if you're hand painting, it's still really awesome to have these. But yeah, if you're airbrushing, definitely fantastic. So great little extra addition, and it's nice that they've included that in this kit. So that wraps up our look at these two kits. To be honest, I don't necessarily think one's better than the other. They're sort of just a very different experience. With the Academy one, it's a lot cheaper at around 20 AUD, not USD. And you can get them even cheaper secondhand as well. Although it's a lot simpler, it's still pretty good for a beginner. Or if you say, I don't know, we're building a 1/72nd scale carrier and just needed to get a ton of aircraft to fill the decks for lower cost, then it's a really great option as well. Honestly, with a bit of work, you could probably get quite a detailed kit. I'm tempted to do a lot of 3D printing and design just for a bit of a challenge and see if I can upgrade it. I've actually got a second Academy one, although it's a scrap aircraft, so it's going to need a lot of work. But if I could find or make a new canopy for it, I'll probably have a go at restoring it as well. The Hobby Boss kit, though, looks absolutely fantastically detailed, and it's got some amazing options and choices. So if you wanted to do a diorama or have a really mind-blowing one, that's probably the best kit to go with. Although it is a lot more expensive, it's almost triple at $48 AUD, which is a fair bit, really, for a single-engine aircraft. Although, like I said, a lot of detail and a lot less work required to bring it up to a higher standard than the Academy kit. So, yeah, nice to have these two different options on the market. I should also mention that Hobby Boss are going to release a TBF1 version, which is more in line with what the Academy kit is. So you'll have a detailed option for the earlier Avengers as well, which is great. Would have been nice if there were more marking options with the Hobby Boss. Well, both kits really could have used more, but especially the Hobby Boss one, seeing as it's newer and they could have added some extra markings, but they've sort of just gone with two US ones. But like I said, hopefully there'll be some great aftermarket ones as well for the Fleet Air Arm, the New Zealand Air Force, and all sorts of other units that the Avenger was used in, because it was a very common aircraft and a very important one in the Pacific. So, great kits, and depending on what you want, you can get some really nice varied build experiences, and I think they're both pretty good depending on what you want. I'm thinking for my Hobby Boss kit, I'm probably going to put it on hold until I've gotten an airbrush and gotten a bit of experience, just because I don't want to lose all of those fantastic details under a thick layer of paint. Not that I think it's impossible to get a good result with brush painting, I really enjoy doing it as well, but I think it's an extra special kit and I want to save it for when I've got a bit more skill and have practiced on some others, like the older Academy one. So another reason why the Academy kit is still pretty good. It's a good practice aircraft. But that's it for this video. I do hope you enjoyed it and got something out of it. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and also subscribe to the channel, as it really helps out. And a massive thank you as always to my wonderful patrons for helping me to fund buying these kits to do reviews on. Let me know in the comments which one you prefer, and if you've got any other suggestions for not only other Avenger kits in 1/72nd scale, but any others you would like to see me have a look at. Looking forward to doing build videos on these ones, although again, it's probably going to be quite a while. There'll be plenty of others in the meantime. Thanks again for watching, and of course, as always, take care and model on.